Yes, friends, more checks are being sent out right now to low-income households. New fourth stimulus payments have been approved by lawmakers to address the hardships that millions of Americans have been facing for the past 2 years. Wave 1 of fourth stimulus checks are going to be direct deposited and mailed out to all eligible residents. But friends, there is some eligibility requirements that have also changed. These checks must be claimed by a deadline that is coming up in just a few weeks. So make sure that you watch until the end of this video, because I will be helping you stay up to date on this information. Friends, to say thank you for watching my videos every day, I'm giving away 4 $75 Walmart gift cards every week. Please make sure that you click and like several of my videos and then comment below the keyword of each video that you watch. The more videos that you comment on, the greater your chances of winning these giveaways.
20 months into the Democratic majority, I just want to take a moment to highlight the many accomplishments we have secured in this chamber under Democratic leadership. It's the most in recent memory. The American Rescue Plan, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, the CHIPS and Science Act, the Gun Safety Bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, an omnibus package, and many other bills in between. Senate Democrats have worked hard every step of the way to improve the lives of American people, to help those in the middle class stay there, to help those struggling to get into the middle class a little easier to get there. And we will continue to do our work for the American people this week by passing a CR to keep the government open until December 16th and avoid a needless government shutdown. We're going to work quickly, work fast to finish the process here in the Senate, send a CR to the House so they can send it to the President's desk. With cooperation from our Republican colleagues, the Senate can finish its work as soon as tomorrow. Yesterday's vote showed the CR has strong support, and I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to work with us together to finish this bill quickly, since the CR contains things that many people on both sides of the aisle support. Billions of dollars in disaster aid to help hard-hit communities in Kentucky and Louisiana and Alabama and Texas and Alaska and Puerto Rico battered by floods, and disasters over the past year, as well as help for New Mexico to recover from its worst wildfire in that state's history. It reauthorizes FDA user use for another 5 years to prevent the slowdown of the review of life-saving drugs and medical devices so needed by so many people. $12 billion in emergency aid for the people of Ukraine, waging that heroic fight against the vicious, evil dictator Putin and the Russian army. America's contributions to help the people of Ukraine has made an enormous difference in helping Ukraine defend itself, and Joe Biden's done a fabulous job there and deserves a whole lot of credit. The war in Ukraine is far from over, and America must continue to do all we can to help the Ukrainian people beat the brutal, nasty, vicious Putin. And one item that was a priority for me and many other senators, Jack Reed in particular, was the funding for the LIHEAP program. The CR includes $1 billion that will help Americans most at risk this winter to keep the heat.
So friends, there is more stimulus money going out. Maine residents could be eligible to snag $850 in relief checks to address crisis and inflation-induced economic woes. An estimated 858,000 residents in Maine will be able to collect the relief checks, which are funded by a little over half of the state's budget surplus. Eligible individuals have until the end of October to fill out the necessary paperwork to claim their payments. According to News Center Maine, State Governor Janet Mills said in support of the bill, "What this budget shows once again, through hard work and good faith negotiation, is that Democrats, Republicans, and Independents can come together to do what is right for Maine people, and that we can do so without bitter partisanship that has sometimes divided the state in the past." So my friends, to qualify for the fiscal relief, Maine residents must be full-year residents of the state and file a 2021 Maine income tax return by October 31st, 2022. According to the governor's office, individuals must also have an annual income that is under $100,000 if filing individually, or under $200,000 if filing jointly, and must not be filed as a dependent. Governor Mills signed a bill greenlighting the checks back in April. She proposed a relief checks to alleviate fiscal strain on residents of Maine and managed to wrangle the measure through the state legislature. The stimulus is projected to cost a total of $729.3 million. Friends, it is also important to remember that the checks will be rolled out to residents using the address on the 2021 Maine income tax return. New Englanders have already been heeding the warnings for many months. Natural gas price volatility in the U.S. reached its highest level in 20 years at the beginning of 2022. Crude oil prices peaked to a 13-year high last March. The fluctuations have persisted, and it's an uncertain time in terms of utility bills. New Englanders have already been heeding the warnings for many months. If residents of New England want to stay warm in their home this winter, it is probably going to be very expensive. Friends, the new keyword for this video is New Jersey. If you would like to enter today's Walmart gift card giveaway, please click and like several of my videos, and then comment below this keyword, which is New Jersey, and additional keywords of any video of mine that you watch. And do make sure, friends, that you are subscribed to my channel. Remember, friends, that the more videos that you comment on, the greater your chances of winning these giveaways. Today, President Biden warned oil and gas companies against increasing prices for consumers as Hurricane Ian landfalls along Florida's southwest coast. During a conference today, President Biden said, let me repeat, do not use this as an excuse to raise gasoline prices or gouge the American people. America is watching. The industry should do the right thing. Biden also added that the hurricane provides no excuse for price increases at the pump. And if that happens, he will ask federal officials to determine whether price gouging is going on. There are a few signs that average gas prices have jumped significantly in Florida as a hurricane began to approach. AAA put the statewide average at just under $3.40 a gallon, 0.6 of a cent higher than a week ago. A 99-day run of falling pump prices nationally ended recently, and the 14-week decline was the longest streak since 2015. The nationwide average price has risen past $5 a gallon and $6 in California in June, as the economic recovery and an increase in travel boosted great demand for gasoline and also caused a spike in oil prices. Gasoline prices mostly reflect trends in global oil prices and crude oil. Both the U.S. and international benchmark has been slumping since mid-June on growing fears of a global recession that would reduce demand for energy. Many energy analysts believe prices are more likely to rise and fall in the next few months, but changes in sentiment about the economy and even hurricane season make predictions uncertain. President Biden's approval rating dropped 5 points in the past week. A new poll found that 41% of respondents approved of Biden's job performance. That is down from 46% last week. The results are a reversal of recent weeks, during which Biden's approval rating has risen significantly, following a series of legislative successes. President Biden last month signed bipartisan legislation to increase investment in semiconductor manufacturing and to expand health care for veterans. He also signed a major climate, tax, and health care package into law. The new poll found the lower approval rating comes largely from a decline in President Biden's approval among Democrats. Approval from members of the president's party dropped from 85% in last week's poll to 80% this week. Friends, what do you all think of President Biden's approval rating? Please let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section below. Well, my great and awesome friends, that is the end of my daily stimulus update video for this afternoon. Thank you, friends, for joining me here every time I post a video. I greatly appreciate all of you. I will be announcing a winner for the Walmart gift card giveaway in a video later today. So please stay tuned for that video and remember to enter the keywords in the comments section below. Thank you, friends, and have a wonderful and blessed afternoon.
West Virginians started their day with news that inflation rose to 8.3% in August, while President Biden and his party and climate activists began setting up for their Inflation Reduction Act party at the White House. Meanwhile, that same day, the U.S. stock market had its worst day since June 2020 as the White House and his fellow Democrats celebrated their green spending bill that would only extend inflationary pain. But it does expand U.S. and IRS enforcement on Americans who are struggling to afford basic necessities. Days after the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office published an analysis that the Inflation Reduction Act would actually not reduce inflation, particularly in the short term, President Biden announces that he will do student debt cancellation that would add another $1 trillion to the deficit. Today and tomorrow, the Federal Reserve, which is our United States monetary watchdog, is meeting to set new interest rates in a bid to tame inflation. The body has had to raise interest rates aggressively by 3/4 of a point. In June, Chairman Powell, who's the chairman of the Fed, admitted that the rate increase is unusually large and would not be common. The Fed will likely raise interest rates again by the same amount tomorrow for the third consecutive time in a row. These are the most aggressive rate increases since the 1980s, when my mortgage was way into the teens, that Chairman Powell has plainly stated will bring, quote, pain to households and businesses. We can't forget that the Democrats alone passed a bill last year that they called the American Rescue Plan, which rescued nothing and instead endangered our fragile economy coming out of COVID by hypercharging inflation. Democrats alone drafted and pushed forward their most recent bill, bypassing the normal committee process. And Democrats alone passed it, rejecting every Republican amendment along the way. In short, these policies continue to destabilize every single corner of our economy. Well, how do we know this? We see some of the statistics I talk about. Well, I know it because West Virginians have lived it, and I hear from them frequently about their legitimate concerns. A retiree from Clarksburg, West Virginia, wrote to me recently saying that she and her husband are struggling every month, despite having done their due diligence to save well for their retirement. She says they're trying not to dip into their 401ks or their TSP retirement accounts, but that it is getting harder and harder to not do that. As inflation drags on, the lifespan of retirement savings will continue shrinking for our seniors in West Virginia, and those seniors account for 41% of our population. Another West Virginian wrote to me about the tough choices her family is making, and I quote, "The economy has crumbled in the blink of an eye. My husband and I have full-time jobs and 2 children. I'm tearful because I sit here looking at these upcoming bills and I'm having to decide to pay a bill or to buy groceries," end quote. A resident from Weston, West Virginia, told me that his insurance premiums recently increased. And when he asked the company why that happened, they told him point blank it was due to inflation. In the same letter, the constituent wrote to me, quote, "This crazy spending has got to stop." But it's not just West Virginians who are experiencing this inflationary problems. The National Defense Industrial Association, authored in part by former Deputy Defense Secretary David Norquist, released a white paper recently that indicated that inflation has cost the Department of Defense $50 billion and estimates that it will cost an additional $110 billion to our nation's defenses from fiscal year 2021 through fiscal year 2023. Think about this in the face of what we're talking about in terms of trying to help Ukraine overcome this terrible invasion by the Russians. Residential real estate has skyrocketed 43% in the past 2 years. In fact, this year, mortgage rates have risen from 3.2% to 6.3%, which is the highest they've been since 2008. Setting all kinds of records here, Mr. President. So some are going so far as to predict an additional 17.8% rise in home prices over the next year. A recent paper released by Goldman Sachs, aptly titled "The Housing Downturn Further to Fall," warns that higher mortgage rates